Mutie. You have a problem? Mutie's in here, they work for me. Out there, you got powers. But in here, I got powers. You're pretty tough. Let's see how tough that little mutie baby is.
A prisoner approaches this girl and tells her that while she might have powers inside the prison, she holds control, and the girl must obey her. But the girl refuses to comply. In response, the other inmates, siding with the bully, gang up on her. At first, she doesn't react, but things escalate when the ringleader punches her in the stomach, cruelly mentioning the rumor that she's pregnant and saying they want to see how strong her baby really is. Furious, she finally unleashes her powers. Using a nearby metal table, she strikes back with full force, slamming the attacker against the metal bars and pinning him there. Guards quickly arrive and break up the fight. They drag the girl away and lock her in a secluded bunker. Alone and in pain, she starts to cry as blood trickles from her nose. Her name is Lorna. She had been arrested just days earlier after trying to help a mutant named Clarice escape police custody. Lorna is also a mutant, gifted with the power to control metal, able to deflect bullets, move vehicles, and turn any metallic object into a weapon. The story begins and we see Atlanta cops chase a mutant fugitive named Clarice Fong. She gets cornered, but quick as a flash, she opens a portal and slips away to an empty workshop. Not far behind, 3 mutants, Thunderbird, Eclipse, and Polaris, are tracking her down. Thunderbird senses she's close. They catch her changing clothes inside. She panics, throwing stuff at them, but Eclipse dodges it all. They tell her they're mutants too. Polaris grabs a stapler from her hand to prove it. Marcos and Lorna offer her a safe place. Just as they get ready to leave, police roll up on the workshop. Polaris and Thunderbird duck while cruisers pull in. Polaris blasts the vehicles, taking them out. The cops fire back. She shields the group while Thunderbird hunts for a way out. Eclipse blinds the cops with a flash of light, giving them a chance to slip away. At the getaway spot, a cop shoots Eclipse's hand. Polaris loses it and slams the guy into a dumpster, but other officers catch her off guard with tasers. Thunderbird stops Eclipse from helping. They get away, but Polaris gets left behind. At Bellevue Acres High, Andy waits while his parents meet with the principal, pushing for action against bullying that's messing with his grades and mood. Reed, tough and direct, gets things moving, but he's soon called away. He's a prosecutor on the mutant task force at Garland Detention Center. Back home, Lauren video chats with her boyfriend about her dance outfit, then joins the family for dinner. Andy brings up a debate about testing people for the X gene and calls someone a mutie. Lauren calls it a slur and they argue until Caitlin steps in, fed up. At Garland's mutant wing, Polaris is locked in a plastic cell. Reed tells her she's charged with attempted murder and abuse of powers. He offers a deal, but she denies the charges, saying she was attacked. Reed, knowing her ties to the mutant underground, doesn't buy it. He visits Lorna's inner cell and stands close, telling her he's trying to help. He reminds her of the serious charges. Using her magnetic powers, Lorna pulls at the screws in Reed's injured knee, showing she didn't mean to hurt him badly. Reed then shows her medical reports that stun and anger her. She snaps, breaking lights, cracking glass, wrecking her cell. Meanwhile, Lauren gets ready for the dance, but finds Andy waiting in the car. He begs to come, lying to their parents. Lauren hesitates, but finally agrees after he says he's sick of being trapped like veal. At the dance, Lauren joins Jack, but Andy sits alone. He tries asking a girl to dance, but her friends shut him down. Bullies grab him and drag him to the locker room. They mock him for tattling and pin him under hot water. Angry and hurt, Andy loses control. His powers explode. Tiles crack, pipes burst, and part of the gym falls apart. Students panic and run. Lauren pushes through the crowd and uses a force field to shield herself, accidentally showing off her mutant powers. She finds Andy breaking down and helps him calm down. Together, they escape the chaos. At the Mutant Underground HQ, Clarice settles in. Sage asks if she wants to contact family, but Clarice says it's complicated. Sage promises to stay until she's relocated. John treats Marcos's wound and they argue. Marcos wants to rescue Lorna, but John warns it's too risky after nearly losing to cops. Their talk breaks when Sage shows a news report labeling Andy and Lauren as mutant terrorists. Lorna's rescue has to wait. At home, Andy tries explaining the gym disaster. Caitlin is shocked to learn he's a mutant. Lauren explains powers usually show up when stressed. Caitlin asks how Lauren knows, and Lauren says she's had powers for 3 years, first showing up during a near accident. Caitlin is hurt, Lauren kept it secret, but Lauren points out their father locks up mutants. Agents Turner and Weeks show up to arrest Andy and Lauren. Caitlin refuses, but they force their way in and knock her down. Andy's powers shake the house. Lauren uses her force field field to protect them, helping the family escape. Later, Caitlin calls Reed, telling him the kids are mutants. They meet at a diner. Reed realizes Sentinel Services won't quit. Caitlin suggests hiding with her sister, but Reed says they have to run to Mexico. He promises to protect them. Agent Turner goes to the courthouse asking to see Reed Strucker's office and files. Reed's boss is uneasy, but lets him. Turner notes how strange it is Reed ran after years on the mutant task force. Outside, Reed secretly calls Carla, asking her to get the Mutant Network case file. Carla agrees, even though it's risky. At the motel, Andy struggles to control his powers. Lauren encourages him and shows how she uses hers. Andy tries but loses control again, wrecking the vending machine. At Mutant Underground HQ, Marcos thanks Clarice for her help even though they lost Lorna. He hopes to use her teleportation to break Lorna out, but Clarice explains she can't teleport to places she hasn't seen. She shows it with a toy that gets cut in half when teleported through the ceiling. Reed calls Marcos, offering a deal, help his family escape, and Lorna goes free. Marcos agrees. At the motel, Reed and Caitlin get ready to run as a Sentinel drone approaches. Lauren shields them while they steal a truck and take off. Reed meets Marcos at a mutant bar. Marcos pushes Reed, who finally reveals where Lorna is. Marcos agrees to help but wants Reed to stay behind. They plan the escape to Mexico. Clarice tells John Marcos went off alone and didn't return. John says they must find him. Sure, he can track Marcos like he did her. The Struckers meet Eclipse at a warehouse to plan crossing the border. Eclipse has contacts for smuggling and new IDs. Before they move, Sentinel Services surrounds them. Blink and Thunderbird arrive, telling them to run. Sentinels attack. Eclipse and Lauren hold them off while Blink opens a portal to Mutant Underground HQ. Everyone escapes except Reed, who gets shot waiting for Andy. Blink closes the portal, leaving Reed behind to be captured. A year back, Reed took Caitlin, Lauren, Andy, and his mom Ellen bowling. Caitlin missed a strike, and Reed joked she might rethink pro bowling. Ellen wasn't interested, saying bowling was one thing she and Reed's dad never agreed on. The fun died when nearby, a dad argued with his mutant daughter. People teased the girl for her vibrating powers. Reed tried to look away, but when the girl lost control for a second, Reed warned the dad to step back before things got worse. Damage from mutant powers was serious business. Now, after jumping through Clarice's portal, Andy, Caitlin, and Lauren freak out about leaving Reed behind. Marcos helps Clarice while John explains they're at the Mutant Underground HQ. Saving Reed now means risking capture or death, so they focus on Clarice, who collapsed from overusing her powers to save them and close the portal. She drifts in and out, weak from holding the portal open, and the long trip. Marcos helps her sit down, but the Struckers' panic only makes things worse. Marcos says Reed's planning to free Andy's girlfriend Lorna from jail, but for now, Clarice comes first. At the warehouse, after missing the Struckers, Agent Turner orders a hunt for 3 dangerous mutants: Thunderbird, Eclipse, and Blink, linked to a network helping mutant fugitives. Turner tells Reed he's been hit with an immobilizer and will talk about his family once it wears off. At Lakewood Jail, Lorna tries to break free but triggers her shock collar. She falls while inmates laugh. No backup, no crew. At HQ, John and Sonia worry about Clarice's failing health and where to keep the Struckers safe. Sonia doubts it's safe after John nearly died. She questions Marcos about talking to Reed without permission. Marcos says he's just helping mutants. John suspects it's about Lorna. Clarice's condition gets worse. Caitlin, a nurse, sees Clarice struggling to breathe and running a fever. She says Clarice needs a hospital. Marcos offers first aid, but Caitlin doubts she can handle it alone. Lauren pushes her to try. Clarice convulses, opening a portal to a road where a truck crashes, splitting in half with part passing through. They all duck for cover. John moves Clarice near the vault. Marcos asks how she still opens portals. Caitlin admits she's no expert. Clarice convulses again, opening the portal. Armed civilians show up. Marcos readies to fight, but John says hold back. Lauren closes the portal, shutting Clarice down. Marcos and Caitlin plan a hospital raid for medicine. Lauren stays to guard. At Sentinel Services, Turner questions Reed. Reed knows mutant rights. Being mutant isn't illegal. Turner pushes for cooperation, noting the Struckers refuse to surrender. Reed asks for a lawyer. Turner refuses deals and says he's doing Reed a favor. That night, Caitlin and Marcos head to the hospital. Caitlin worries about her kids. Marcos says John's bulletproof and watching. Caitlin wants Marcos to keep his promise to get the family out. Marcos reveals Reed once tried to send Lorna to jail. Caitlin defends Reed but stays quiet when Marcos questions her mutant support. Next day at jail, Lorna avoids fights and meets a tough inmate called Porcelain Mutant. She washes black dye from her hair, showing green locks. She ignores hostile looks. At HQ, John says Clarice is a mutant refugee caught stealing food through portals. Clarice's powers flare, opening a portal to police. Lauren closes it while John hears SWAT is coming. Andy praises Lauren. Marcos and Caitlin reach a crowded hospital, likely closing to mutants. Marcos reopens a glowing bullet wound to fake an emergency and get inside. Dr. Watkins stitches Marcos, doubting his story. Seeing bruises on Caitlin, he assumes domestic violence because she's with a mutant. Caitlin is shocked but denies it and changes into scrubs. At HQ, John and Sonya worry Clarice's portals will open again. Lauren holds them for now, but SWAT is near. Sonya wants to move Clarice. John fears it will make her worse. They hope Marcos and Caitlin bring medicine. Turner interrogates Reed, charging him with terrorism. He claims Reed used Lorna's file to contact the mutant underground, calling them terrorists. Reed objects. Turner recalls losing his daughter in a mutant attack and doubts if the blast was from a good or bad mutant. Reed doubts the charges. Turner disagrees. Lorna tries to befriend Porcelain Mutant at lunch, but Porcelain warns her the collar won't come off. She says prison is hard without troublemakers. Caitlin, disguised in stolen scrubs, sneaks medicine from the hospital but spots Dr. Watkin talking to police. She warns Marcos. Two officers burst in with guns. Caitlin and Marcos flee through laundry, escaping by welding the back door shut. In Prison Yard, Scar mocks Lorna, claiming control over mutants inside. Scar's scars show past fights. His crew attacks Lorna, punching and kicking her pregnant belly. Furious, Lorna rips up a steel table and throws it. Guards stop the fight and put her in solitary. John, Sonya, Lauren, and Andy gather as Clarice's portals multiply out of control. John wants to evacuate. Sonya resists. SWAT arrives through a portal. John throws an officer back. Andy pushes the team away, but accidentally knocks out Clarice, closing one portal. Many others open across the underground. John orders Sonya, Lauren, and Andy to evacuate. Turner shows Reed a video of his mother Ellen being questioned. Turner pressures Reed to name everyone involved, warning the whole family is at risk if he won't cooperate. Caitlin learns mutant healthcare is rough, and mutants lose rights if seen as dangerous. Marcos shares his rough past and how Lorna became family. At HQ, Caitlin injects Clarice to stop the portals, saving the underground. Clarice wakes confused, but okay. She can't remember why she kept portaling to that road. Caitlin praises the kids and tells them it's their turn to fight. At Sentinel Services, Reed refuses to talk despite his mother's questioning. He thinks Turner is desperate after losing gear and letting mutants escape. Reed offers a deal. Family goes free if he hands over the mutant underground. Turner agrees, but not gladly. Elsewhere, Dr. Roderick Campbell digs through old mutant case files from the 1960s. He asks if Andy and Lauren have been found and requests contact with Turner. 3 years ago, outside headquarters, Lorna tells Marcos the station was condemned after the Oakwood riots. A mutant lost control and destroyed the area, making the underground's hideout perfect. Marcos thinks being a mutant is like a punishment for some past sin, forcing them to live under constant persecution. But Lorna says she wouldn't change who she is. Then she asks Marcos about the first time he had fun using his powers, but he refuses to answer. So she shares how she discovered her magnetic powers at 16 by levitating metal. Finally, Marcos opens up and creates a small aurora with glass shards. Their hands touch, and they kiss. Later, Lorna sits alone in Fulton County Jail. Agent Turner visits her and warns that he is close to taking down the underground, starting with Marcos, known as Eclipse. He offers Lorna one last chance to cooperate in exchange for visitation rights with Marcos, but if she refuses, her fate will be worse. He gives her time to decide before the big bust. At the station, John tries to stop Marcos from breaking into the jail to rescue Lorna. Caitlin, Sonya, Sage, and Shatter are all there. John warns that the prison has high walls and armed guards. Marcos says Clarice can bypass the security, but John and Caitlin doubt her unstable powers. Marcos suggests John train her like the other mutants. Sonya points out that Clarice once freed herself, so John reluctantly agrees. Caitlin insists they must follow the law and suggests getting a lawyer, since some Congress members are sympathetic, but John doubts it will work. Also, contact with the outside is banned because of Sentinel Services, and Marcos and John don't want to risk betrayal. Meanwhile, in the sleeping quarters, Andy and Lauren argue over a shoe piece in a board game. Lauren wins, and Caitlin listens quietly outside. John asks Clarice to break Lorna out. She wants to help, but can't transport them since she lost her portal powers after falling ill. A purple dagger-shaped mark under her eye shows this. John says powers don't break, but must be accessed through positive emotions, not fear or pain. When John returns from talking with Clarice, Sonya asks if Clarice will help free Lorna. Clarice says not yet. Her power needs a strong reason beyond fear. Sonya offers to plant a false memory, making Lorna her best friend to motivate her. But John warns that false memories can backfire. That night, Caitlin wakes Andy and Lauren. She's going to see their Uncle Danny for help finding Reed. They insist on protecting her. They don't want to lose her, like they lost their dad. At Sentinel Services, Reed and Turner retrace recent events. Reed met Marcos at Tex's Lounge to plan moving his family. Marcos knows the bartender Fade, who's linked to the Underground. Turner sends recon and fakes Reed's escape to lure the Underground. If Reed can't contact them, Sentinel Services will find his family and arrest Marcos. Back at the station, John and Clarice talk about her powers. Clarice thinks fear controls her ability to escape danger, but John says focusing on what you love helps. She pictures a jelly donut and briefly opens a portal. John notices Caitlin leaving with Andy and Lauren. He warns Marcos the Struckers left at night with little gear. Caitlin trusts the system to find Reed, but Marcos knows mutant prejudice is real. They must follow the Struckers, even though Lorna risks federal prison. If caught, the Struckers could expose the Underground. The Struckers reach Atlanta, avoiding police. Andy suggests robbing a bank, but Caitlin and Lauren refuse. Instead, Andy uses his powers to open parking meters for cab fare. Meanwhile, Sonia meets Clarice, who struggles to control her powers. Clarice almost opens a portal but can't hold it. Sonia reminds her that Lorna depends on them. Clarice says John told her to focus on something meaningful, but she feels she has no one, not even a boyfriend, and jokes Sonia should tell John his plan won't work. Sonia explains they agreed not to be together since she joined the Underground as a refugee. She urges Clarice to follow John's advice. Caitlin arrives at her brother Danny's with Andy and Lauren. Danny warns that police have been looking for them. His wife Mary is away. Danny's son Scott is amused that Andy destroyed Sentinel robots and asks where they've been living. Lauren mentions the Underground. After the kids play, Danny says Caitlin shouldn't have come but understands her need to find Reed. Although he knows politicians, he can't ask favors for outlaws. Caitlin tearfully asks for help, reminding Danny their family too. He lets them stay the night and take some money but wants them gone by morning. Sentinel Services issues an APB for Reed Strucker, now the focus of a manhunt. Agents Turner and Weeks track him with a hidden ankle monitor. After hacking cameras, they spot Fade leaving the bar, perfect to send Reed out. Turner reminds Reed his family depends on him. Reed tells Fade he was at the bar with Marcos planning to move his family, but got separated by Sentinel Services. Fade, knowing the authorities are after Reed, pulls a gun on him. Reed insists he only wants to find his family and says he was a prosecutor with useful info. Fade reluctantly agrees to help. He leads Reed to Sheila and Dominique, who escaped Sentinel Services after they took Sheila's mutant husband. Fade handles transporting people to a drop point for HQ pickup. Sheila explains they target Dominique because of her X gene. Seeing Reed's pain from an immobilizer, Sheila uses her powers to ease it, and Reed thanks her. At Danny's, Andy and Scott play games while Lauren checks social media. Scott asks Andy to destroy his trophy, but Andy can't control his powers yet. Lauren sees their house was vandalized, and Andy angrily smashes Scott's trophy. Caitlin covers for them and lies about Danny helping. In a surveillance van, Agent Turner texts his girlfriend. Agent Weeks spots Reed and the others moving and calls for backup. Reed, feeling guilty, tells Fade to stop the van, but Fade refuses. Reed jumps out to break tracking. Fade cloaks the van and leaves. Turner scolds Reed. At Fulton County Jail, Lorna uses her power to open her cell despite a shocking collar, but collapses in pain. The next day, Thunderbird and Eclipse find Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren at Danny's. They wake Caitlin, warning that the kids are in danger and need to leave. Caitlin insists on staying to find Reed. Danny comes out, surprised by the visitors. Outside, a mob led by Chuck Sanders surrounds the house. Scott admits he accidentally alerted them by sharing a photo of Andy's destroyed trophy. Thunderbird warns that running could lead to a deadly fight. Andy wants to fight back, but Thunderbird says people will die. Caitlin tries to appeal to Chuck, a former teammate, but Danny knows the mob is after the $300,000 reward. When Danny fails to calm them, Chuck hits him with a gun. Andy smashes the door, sending the mob flying. As Chuck tries to shoot, Thunderbird pulls Andy away, and Eclipse blasts light to hold off the mob. They all escape in a truck. As they rush to HQ, Chuck and his mob chase and shoot at their truck. Thunderbird calls Sonia for backup. Sonia tells Thunderbird to return and promises a plan. Knowing Clarice can save them, Sonia implants a romantic memory of John and Clarice to help her open a portal. Under fire, Blink opens a portal for the SUV to escape. Thunderbird jumps out while Eclipse escorts the family inside. Caitlin apologizes for running. Eclipse forgives her. Suddenly, Blink hugs Thunderbird, confusing him. Dreamer reveals she gave Blink a false memory of her and Thunderbird together, angering Thunderbird over the consequences. Meanwhile, Agent Turner rejects Dr. Campbell's offer to access mutant suspects in exchange for resources. Caitlin visits her brother Danny, who offers a cabin for her and the kids. He reveals Reed and Lorna are alive, but in a secret mutant facility. Caitlin refuses to give up hope and leaves with Thunderbird and Eclipse, 2 years ago, the Underground tried to sneak into a mutant relocation center in Georgia. Thunderbird and Pulse waited outside the fence, sticking to their plan to keep the element of surprise. Pulse, who had once been a prisoner there, grew impatient. Suddenly, gunfire broke out. Eclipse and Sage escaped, but Randall and Elsa were killed by advanced automated defenses. Pulse used his power to disable the system, but got shot and was believed dead. Now at Sentinel Services Regional HQ, Agent Turner is taking Lorna, who insists on being called Polaris, to a cell next to Reed Strucker. Lorna is shocked to find Reed there too, and refuses to listen when he tries to explain his deal with the Underground, especially after nearly getting Marcos killed. Meanwhile, John and Marcos call a meeting at headquarters to plan Lorna's rescue. Both Lorna and Reed are held at Sentinel Services Regional HQ and will soon be moved to a high-security facility, one where no one ever returns. Many members, including Sage, hesitate to volunteer because of past heavy losses. She estimates an 86.5% chance of failure. But Marcos argues that doing nothing means losing Lorna and Reed forever. Caitlin pleads for help, reminding everyone of Lorna's sacrifices. Only Sonia, Clarice, and Harry step forward. Andy worries about his father's fate, but Caitlin urges hope despite the risks. With 6 volunteers, John, Marcos, Sonia, Clarice, Harry, and Caitlin, they discuss their plan. Clarice can portal them inside but warns of guards and cameras. Harry can cloak from guards but not cameras, so Caitlin suggests ambushing Lorna and Reed during transport instead. The problem is, they don't know the route. Marcos offers to use his cartel contacts to find it, despite John's doubts. John urges Sonia to tell Clarice about the implanted memory, but Sonia fears losing her support. Still, Sonia insists she did it to protect the team, and would do it again if necessary. Meanwhile, Marcos visits the cartel boss's daughter, Carmen, to get info on Lorna and Reed's transport. She agrees to help only if Marcos promises to be her friend again. At HQ, Clarice wakes from the implanted memory. John warns Marcos about dealing with the cartel, but Marcos pushes on. The cartel confirms Lorna and Reed are being moved by convoy. Carmen demands Marcos use his powers for her in exchange for the information. The next morning, John shares the convoy's route and plans to intercept near an old warehouse. Clarice says she can portal them out only if the bus stops. Marcos suggests melting the tires, but Caitlin warns that would cause a deadly fight. They need a safer plan. Lauren secretly listens in. Lauren asks Andy to help stop the prison truck by focusing his unstable powers using her shields. Together, they destroy a lamppost light precisely. In their cells, Reed admits to Lorna that he finally understands how he has been the villain, ruining lives with harsh prosecutions. Lorna refuses to forgive him, reminding him of the pain he caused. John is impressed when Lauren and Andy show control of their powers from a distance. Caitlin worries they're being used as child soldiers, but Lauren insists they're ready to risk it for what matters. Caitlin reluctantly agrees, only if John can keep them safe. Carmen brings Marcos to a warehouse where a beaten man is tied up. She demands Marcos use his powers to get the man to reveal where stolen drugs are hidden. Marcos resists but obeys. The man confesses. At HQ, Marcos tells John the convoy leaves at 10 a.m. with a route sweep at 9:30, giving them 30 minutes to prepare. Marcos hides the truth about his meeting with Carmen. Clarice dreams of John while Sonia helps John finalize the plan. On convoy day, Lorna and Reed board the bus, locked inside plastic cells. Thunderbird and Blink wait in a warehouse to monitor after Andy and Lauren disable a tire. Blink admits she's had poor sleep. Thunderbird shares his struggles but stays committed. They talk about the night they first met, a memory altered by Sonia. Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren wait on a rooftop. Lauren helps Caitlin with medical supplies and notes how quiet it is. It's Sunday, the day of a football fundraiser she was supposed to bake for. Stopping a government convoy is far from her plans. Eclipse warns Dreamer and Traitor to leave if things go wrong. He regrets risking them, but refuses to leave without Lorna. As the convoy nears, Lauren tries to push Andy by blaming him for their troubles, firing him up to prove the bullies wrong. Fueled by anger, Andy and Lauren successfully disable the bus tire, stopping the convoy. They get ready to leave. With the bus stuck, Sentinel agents step out. Inside, Reed tries to convince Polaris to help them escape for the sake of her child. Though she hates him, Polaris agrees reluctantly. Suddenly, the bus tire axle snaps. Agent Turner calls it a mutant attack and orders a lockdown. Eclipse tells Dreamer and Traitor to leave, but Traitor tries to sneak to the bus. His powers fail, and agents shoot him. Eclipse's powers also fail. Thunderbird and Blink find the bus, but their powers are disrupted by Pulse, thought dead but now working for Sentinel. Eclipse distracts the agents while Dreamer helps the injured Traitor. Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren escape amid the gunfire. They find an agent inspecting their SUV. Caitlin knocks him out and tells Lauren to drive away while she stays behind to help Reed. They share a brief hug before splitting up. Agent Turner confirms it's an organized mutant attack. Inside the bus, Reed and Polaris try to escape but fail. Eclipse keeps drawing fire but runs out of power, unaware that Pulse is disrupting their abilities. Thunderbird quickly defeats Pulse's guard and tackles Pulse, who looks sick and unresponsive. Thunderbird knocks Pulse out and notices a strange tattoo on his wrist. Inside the transport truck, Polaris regains her powers but has nothing to use inside the plastic cell. Reed tells her to take the metal screws from his leg. Using them, Polaris frees them both and attacks a guard. Eclipse fires energy blasts at the agents, destroying a car. Blink opens a portal for Dreamer and Traitor to escape. Thunderbird tells Eclipse to leave, but Eclipse insists on waiting for Polaris. Polaris breaks the bus windows. Agent Turner orders shoot to kill. Polaris stops bullets mid-air and disarms the agents, allowing her and Reed to escape. They reunite with Eclipse and Caitlin, who arrives in a Sentinel car to help them flee. Turner is furious, and he orders all safe houses to be shut down to capture mutants and anyone helping them. 4 years ago, Jace's daughter Grace was killed in a mutant march explosion. Now, Agents Turner and Weeks are tracking escapees from a prison transport. Meanwhile, Thunderbird, Eclipse, Polaris, Caitlin, and Reed regroup. Pulse, who was thought dead, has been disrupting their powers. Together, Polaris and Eclipse destroy a Sentinel drone and then share a kiss. After the drone's destruction, Agent Turner and Weeks lock down a 10-mile radius. They plan to trap Eclipse and Polaris on side roads. Turner hopes to stop them before they reach the interstate. At headquarters, Thunderbird, Reed, and Caitlin find the station crowded. Caitlin tells Reed that they are at the Underground, their safe base, and that they are staying together like a family. John learns from Sage that Sentinel Services is raiding mutant sympathizers without warrants and tightening security. The Underground can only watch and keep people off the grid. Lauren reports that Harry was shot during the convoy attack and is now in critical condition. Meanwhile, Fade confronts Reed for nearly exposing headquarters. He reveals they have a troubled history from when Reed worked for Sentinel Services. At the same time, Turner sets up multiple roadblocks and calls in reinforcements. He briefly talks with his wife Paula, but cannot share details about the dangerous mission. Back at HQ, John urges calm so Reed can explain himself, but Fade remains angry. Lauren reveals that her father once prosecuted mutants but turned against Sentinel Services after learning she and her brother are mutants. Reed admits he used a tracker in Fade's bar to find his family, but stopped when he realized it was wrong. Meanwhile, Harry's condition worsens, so Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren take action. Caitlin and Clarice tend to Harry's wounds with strong painkillers. Andy notices they're drawing attention and suggests leaving, but Lauren wants to earn the Underground's trust. Caitlin calls for their help to treat Harry. Shatter warns Sonia that Reed might be kicked out and asks her to erase his memories if needed. Sonia agrees only if John orders it. Clarice overhears this and suspects her own memories may have been tampered with. John hopes Reed and Fade can reconcile, but Fade still distrusts Reed. Reed insists he would never endanger his mutant children or their sanctuary. Before tensions can rise, Sage alerts John to something on the scanners. Suddenly, radios stop buzzing. A traffic stop is called in, followed by a report of drunk and disorderly behavior. No updates on the manhunt. Sage thinks the police have quit, but Reed disagrees. Reed offers to help, saying he knows manhunt protocol. Dispatch calls all units for petty theft. Reed maps 3 calls: a burglary in Stratford, lewd conduct in Hapeville, and an incident in Glen Haven. Multiple units are sent everywhere, which means the Underground is being watched. Police are using code. Sentinel Services hunt Eclipse and Polaris while Atlanta PD tightens the net. Eclipse and Polaris drive clear of danger. Eclipse mentions she is pregnant. She says the baby feels like metal or electricity inside her. Eclipse asks Polaris if she's happy. Polaris says she thought about bringing their baby into this world. Eclipse says she wants to be a father. Their hands touch and create an Aurora Borealis. They joke about names: Aurora for a girl, Rory for a boy, but Polaris laughs and refuses. Turner waits for units he called 20 minutes ago. Weeks says the deputy director rerouted them. Turner is frustrated. Eclipse and Polaris are heading his way. He's right. They spot his roadblock. Eclipse wants to take another route, but Polaris says to keep going. She controls the car, speeds forward, then stops and exits. She disarms Turner's agents and kidnaps Turner. Polaris and Eclipse take Turner to a warehouse. She wraps rebar around his neck, making it hard for him to breathe. Eclipse worries, but Polaris wants answers about Pulse. If Pulse can turn mutants, the Underground will die. Pulse was John's best friend. They can turn anyone. They even tried turning Polaris. Meanwhile, Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren save Harry. They need blood. Andy's O-negative blood type is a match, so he donates. The transfusion begins. John thinks about evacuating. Sage warns that identifiable mutants will get caught. Reed suggests they appear in the opposite direction so Sentinel will think they are heading to Alabama and redirect their search. Sage warns that capture means interrogation and that the station could be compromised. John looks at Fade. Eclipse asks why Pulse worked the convoy. Turner says not all mutants are terrorists, but that he shot Pulse anyway. Polaris accuses Turner of genocide. Turner mentions the July 15th incident. Eclipse says only a few mutants were involved. Not all. Both sides lost people. Turner says nobody had to die and refuses to apologize for stopping mutant violence. Eclipse asks if fighting violence with violence makes sense. She says July 15th started peaceful. Turner says his daughter died that day. She was only 7. Polaris tells everyone to stay focused. July 15th changed everything. Thousands died and mutants faced persecution. They are fighting to stop weaponized mutants. Eclipse agrees, but doubts Turner can help. Polaris takes information from him and calls Sonya. John asks Fade to drive Reed's getaway car. Fade hesitates because of his history with Reed. John reminds him that Harry took a bullet saving Reed. Fade obeys. Reed plans to leave in 5 minutes. Reed says goodbye. Caitlin is upset he's leaving after he just returned. Reed says he must lure the police away because there is nowhere else for him. The underground needs proof of loyalty. He kisses Caitlin and promises to come back for dinner. Harry's condition is worsening, so the bullet must be removed now. Turner warns Polaris that kidnapping a federal agent will make things worse. He tells her to let Turner go. Polaris offers a deal. Turner is released if they get the truth about Pulse and the detention facilities. Turner refuses, saying he protects dangerous mutants and will not reveal Pulse's secrets. Dreamer arrives with Blink. Sentinel Services and Atlanta PD follow, demanding surrender. Reed and Fade reach an intersection where traffic cameras link directly to the police station. Once spotted, police will redirect away from the underground. They agree to meet 2 blocks away on Elm. Reed walks in overalls, trying to draw attention. John and Sage monitor the situation. Dispatch calls and search teams redirect. John texts Reed to hide. Caitlin has no choice but to operate. Lauren applies pressure while Caitlin makes an incision. She removes a deep bullet. Harry hemorrhages. An artery is cut. Caitlin can't stop the bleeding without a cross clamp. Lauren shields the artery while Caitlin sews and maintains pressure. Harry survives. They watch refugees who trust them. Reed reaches Elm, but Fade is not there. Police approach and open fire. Reed runs into an alley and bumps into an invisible car. He hops in, and they escape. Sentinel agents surround the warehouse holding Turner. Weeks prepares to breach. Eclipse asks Blink about portaling out. Blink says it's possible but difficult. It takes a lot of power to tear space open instead of just lighting it. Turner warns Dreamer that using powers on a federal officer is assault. Dreamer replies, won't feel a thing, and exhales pink smoke. Polaris launches rebar at agents to buy time. Dreamer sees Turner's memories, encounters with Polaris, a courthouse, a symbol John saw on Pulse, and mutant files labeled Hound. Sentinel throws tear gas. Dreamer is ripped away before restoring Turner's memories, leaving him in pain and confused. Sonya draws Turner's memories, but they are hazy. Turner knew Pulse. He remembers a building, documents, and a logo. Reed is unfamiliar with the logo, but John remembers it. It was branded on Pulse's arm. Reed recognizes a drawing of the Baton Rouge Federal Building. People he prosecuted were transferred there and then disappeared. Reed returns as Caitlin prepares dinner. The family eats together, the first time in a long time. Andy asks what's next. Mexico? Reed says they won't leave soon because travel is unsafe with heavy police presence. Reed is helping people at the station who have questions about Sentinel services. They are staying at the underground. They need help. After watching Sonya with Turner, Clarice confronts her. She suspects her memories have been manipulated. She remembers starting a conversation last week, but can't recall it fully. Now, she can't go 10 minutes without John's memories surfacing. Sonya confesses she placed a memory in Clarice's head to save John and others. Clarice couldn't use her powers as needed, so Sonya forged a connection to John to anchor those abilities. Clarice is furious. Sonya had no right to do that. Now Clarice lives loving someone she barely knows who does not love her back. Sonya offers to remove the memory, but Clarice decides to keep it and tells Sonya to stay away. Jace returns home. Paula is worried and wouldn't let him see her. Jace says he was debriefed and that he's fine. He kisses Paula and asks if Grace waited up for him. After Dreamer left Jace confused by failing memory restoration, she stripped the memory of Grace's death. Paula realizes this and asks what really happened. She tells Jace they lost Grace 4 years ago in the July 15th incident. Jace breaks down as he learns Grace is dead. 4 years ago, Phoenix. John canvasses for 7/15 funds. Introduces himself. Mutant veteran. Served Afghanistan like father in Gulf. Few donations. Man outraged. raising money after Dallas explosion. Accuses John of attacking country, begging money. John angry, bends steel clipboard, shouts defended country, 2 tours. Fellow mutant veteran calms him. John's super senses hear truck plotters. Everyone covers. Man throws pipe bomb. John grabs, tosses to vacant lot. Explodes. Car ignites. Metal flies. John catches it. John views childhood photo with father. Marcos enters. New pulse details. Rumors. Mutants hunting mutants for Sentinel. Pulse not alone. Barely ahead of humans. If turned against each other, Underground dies. Baton Rouge Federal Building, Major Mutant Justice Center Southeast. Reed worked with Judge there. May have program information. Breaking in might reveal how Sentinel turns mutants. Not John's usual operation. Making exception. Andy, Lauren distributes supplies to new refugees. Andy grateful for beds before rush. Lauren, they caused rush. Sentinel seeks them. Andy gets water. Refugee Wes approaches Lauren. Image manipulation ability. Asks name. She's busy. What if already done? Makes crowded, unsettled room appear secure within seconds. Mirage, Lauren's touch disrupts. Impressed, but has refugees. Caitlin finds refugee Skylar has high blood pressure. Uses powers 2 to 3 times daily for food. Years. Lived I-85 with mutant kids until Sentinels came. Watches Lorna train Naya. Water manipulation. Asks intentions. Training for combat. Persecution. John asks Clarice portal into Baton Rouge Federal Building. Needs Sentinel info, pulse details. Clarice refuses. Knows Sonia's memory implant. No permission. John apologizes. Asked Sonia not to. Didn't stop. Emergency. Needed help. Clarice angry. Only want powers. Has own issues people. John offers help. Refuses. Asks if warehouse looked genuine. John. Complicated. Clarice portals out. John punches vault door. Team plans Federal Building break-in. No longer hiding. Fighting enemy. Survival. Reed knows building. Cases transferred. Judge Kresge handled Reed's cases. How many disappeared? Reed. Rare special federal program. Marcos wants wall files. Planned Clarice portal. John. Clarice left. Omits memory reason. Andy eavesdrops. Volunteers. Breach wall faster than Marcos. Caitlin watches Reed Andy load truck. Reed discusses bringing Andy. Opportunity connecting. Father-son bonding like breaking Federal Building. Caitlin replies. Best chance? Doesn't like it. Tells Andy stay close. Kisses Reed. Missing wedding ring. Taken jail. Kiss. Part. John tells Marcos be careful, Baton Rouge. Won't join. Underground needs supervision. Marcos. Fine without him. Embrace. Lauren watches Andy. Father gear up with Marcos. Federal Building. Uncover Sentinel program. Wes asks if okay. 3 weeks ago, craziest outing was Six Flags. Not sure anything. Work piling. Jace returns work despite mandatory leave. Weeks surprised. Tries convincing leave. Lost Grace memory. Shouldn't work. Enters office. Views family photo. Calls doctor. Campbell. Truck Baton Rouge. Marcos suggests sleep. Andy beatboxes. School guys thought weird. Never talked bullying. Reed tried. Guidance counselor. Andy. Why guys attacked? Powers manifested. Wished talked before bad. Andy. Father never home. Highway patrol stops. Wants inspection. Marcos. Turn off lights. Might hide. Absorbs light before emitting. Officer opens door. Marcos drains light. Creates shadow blind spot. Sonia checks on John as he reinforces HQ's entrance. He's upset about Pulse, blaming himself for leaving him behind to be captured. Sonia insists it's not his fault, but John questions whether the X-Men made a mistake choosing him to lead. He feels overwhelmed and unable to live up to his father's legacy. Sonia reassures him he was chosen for a reason. A war is coming, though John doubts mutants will win it. Meanwhile, the group camps for the night. Andy jokes about camping with Reed and talks about his powers. Reed asks if using them hurts. Andy says no, it actually feels good, like yelling. When Reed warns his powers can hurt people, Andy defends himself, proud of his abilities. Marcos calls Reed over to discuss tomorrow's route. At HQ, Shatter helps Caitlin find school books. She plans to teach the refugee kids. Shatter notes Sentinel services often targets parents at school pickups. Later, Lorna leads a training session with Lauren, Wes, Naya, and Skylar. Skylar repels her metal attack. Wes jokes with illusions, angering Lorna. She scolds them, stressing the real-world dangers. When Lauren steps up, Caitlin intervenes, refusing to let her daughter train this way despite Lauren's protests. Marcos overhears Reed and Andy's talk and encourages Reed to keep trying. Andy needs his dad. Reed asks if Marcos wants to be a father. Marcos isn't sure. His own father kicked him out for being a mutant. Reed says none of them need to be like their dads. He just tries to love his kids no matter what. Andy quietly listens from nearby. At Sentinel Services, Dr. Campbell informs Agent Turner he's reinstated. He introduces Aid, a Hound program member. Campbell wants the Strucker kids' files now that they're working together. Turner hesitates but agrees. In Baton Rouge, Reed, Marcos, and Andy update Lorna. The courthouse is more secure than expected. Andy suggests entering through a garage that shares a wall. Lorna warns them to be careful and tells Marcos she loves him. Later, Lorna and Caitlin talk. Caitlin wants a future for the kids beyond fighting, but Lorna believes fighting will always be part of their lives. She says Andy and Lauren's powers are extraordinary. Caitlin still hopes for some normalcy, but Lorna insists this, fighting and surviving, is their reality as mutants. Wes takes Lauren to a storage area and asks about her mom's reaction to training. Lauren says her mom only recently learned about her powers, though she's had them for years. She hid them because she wanted a normal life. Wes says pretending to be normal is worse. Lauren agrees. She dreamed of moving to Florence, but now that seems impossible. Wes creates an illusion of Florence, even making the water move. Lauren points out it's actually Rome, but still calls it beautiful before walking away. At the courthouse, Andy blasts a hole through the garage wall. Reed stops him from going further and sends him back to the truck. Inside, Reed and Eclipse break into a judge's office, collect files and hard drives about weaponized mutants like Pulse, and scorch the room before leaving. John tells Sage and Shatter that a station in Alpharetta was attacked. Half the people escaped and are en route, but Sage warns they're already 78% over capacity. John knows it's not ideal, but they have no choice. Later, Sonia asks about the Baton Rouge mission. John says Marcos succeeded. Sonia notes it was done without Clarice, but John insists they were wrong to keep the truth from her. Sonia tells him it's okay that he survived while Pulse didn't, and urges him to move forward. They kiss, but John pulls back. He says he can't be distracted during a war. Sonia disagrees, saying in war, the present is all they have. Before they can continue, John gets a call from Marcos. They're being tailed by police. Reed asks John to check public notices. John finds a warning about Buford Highway, realizing they're heading into an ambush. John alerts Lorna, Caitlin, and Lauren. Lorna explains that they were flagged by toll cameras after being stopped earlier. As John struggles for a plan, Lauren suggests using one of Wes's illusions. She, Wes, and Lorna leave to help while John and Caitlin stay behind. Meanwhile, Sentinel Services and the Atlanta PD set up a roadblock led by Agent Weeks. At a stadium overlooking the roadblock, Polaris, Lauren, and Wes plan the rescue. Polaris tells Eclipse to have the driver keep going. Lauren is unsure if her shields can support the truck, but Polaris urges her to focus. As the truck nears the roadblock, police open fire. Polaris stops the bullets. Lauren forms a shield ramp, and the truck jumps the barricade. Wes then creates illusions to mislead the pursuers while cloaking the real truck. At Sentinel Services HQ, Agent Turner holds a briefing, linking the ambush escapees to the Baton Rouge break-in. He orders mass surveillance in a 50-mile radius, including keywords and suspicious communication. At HQ, Reed cooks dinner and shares a quiet moment with Caitlin, who gives him a replacement wedding ring. She encourages him to talk with Andy. Reed tells Andy he's proud of him. Andy jokes that Reed should be the Monopoly shoe, since he always is. That night, John and Sonia examine the files showing Sentinel Services turning mutants against each other. Clarice travels alone to find her people. As Lorna sleeps, Marcos gets a call from Carmen demanding he repay her or she'll alert Sentinel Services. 3 years ago, John and Lorna meet Marcos at a diner, inviting him to join the mutant underground. They know about his past helping mutants cross the border and want him to do it full-time. Marcos claims it was just a side deal and says things are complicated. He's dating the cartel boss's daughter. John urges him to think bigger, saving lives instead of running trucks. Marcos and Carmen discuss their deal. She reminds him he owes her and expects him to show up tomorrow. Afterward, Marcos looks at a Santa Muerte medallion from a lockbox while Lorna sleeps. The next day, John informs the group that Sentinel Services is increasing surveillance, and they're running low on supplies due to the influx of refugees. Marcos volunteers to drive to Marietta for help. Meanwhile, Sage and Reed work to decrypt the Baton Rouge hard drives, hoping to uncover how Sentinel Services is turning mutants against each other. John also announces he's going to find Clarice, who could compromise the station if caught. Lorna offers to join Marcos, but he insists on going alone. Wes brings Lauren to the off-limits rooftop and leads her onto the scaffolding. Though hesitant, she follows. He has her close her eyes and extends her arms, then casts an illusion of them flying over a river in the mountains. It's beautiful, and as they lean in to kiss, Andy interrupts. Caitlin wants them for lunch. At lunch, Caitlin feeds Zingo while waiting for them. Andy covers for Lauren, lying that he didn't find her on the roof, and Lauren claims she was in the supply room. Caitlin reminds them of their deal. If they want to train, they also have to study and turn in homework. Meanwhile, Sage and Reed work on decrypting the Baton Rouge hard drives. One contains general police files on mutants, but the other is more heavily encrypted. Reed believes it's a list of targeted mutants selected for their powers, clearly illegal. They come across a file matching Wes, a Hispanic male, 16 to 19, with the ability to manipulate images. At Sentinel Services HQ, Dr. Campbell urges Agent Turner to deploy mutant assets in the field. Turner hesitates, but Campbell reveals that mutants placed in prisons have already proven effective upon activation. Marcos visits Carmen, who proposes an alliance. Her money and his powers could help both their people. She reminds him of what they once had and asks him to consider her offer. At HQ, Caitlin teaches biology to young mutants, then discusses Wes with Reed. Reed found Wes in mutant criminal files, but Caitlin urges him not to confront Lauren aggressively and instead talk to her calmly. Meanwhile, Lorna trains young mutants. Reed interrupts to ask Andy about Lauren's absence. Andy quickly admits she's with Wes. John finds Clarice at an abandoned warehouse and apologizes for the unwanted memory Sonya implanted. Clarice calls it a bad soap opera she can't escape. John urges her to return to the station for her safety, and because the underground needs her. Clarice is focused on finding a mysterious countryside road linked to her powers. John offers to help, and she reluctantly agrees. At Sentinel Services HQ, Agent Turner prepares mutant assets for field deployment, but faces legal trouble when a DOJ official arrives, demanding the operation be suspended due to lack of warrants and probable cause. Turner refuses, arguing the threat mutants pose justifies their actions. Lorna praises Andy, Naya, and Skylar's training, but warns Andy not to damage structures. She checks on Marcos's supply run to Marietta and discovers he never showed up and is unreachable. Lorna suspects Marcos lied, especially after noticing his Santa Muerte medallion, associated with cartels, is missing. Sonya tries to reassure her, but Lorna is convinced Marcos is hiding something. Marcos asks Carmen about the job. She explains that Russians are moving into the area with a shipment heading north tomorrow. She wants Marcos to intercept it without anyone dying and offers to pay him so he can supply the underground. Lauren returns, claiming she was in the basement helping refugees, but Reed and Caitlin know she's lying. They confront her about Wes and show her his criminal file from the encrypted drive. Lauren is in denial, defending Wes by saying they've all broken laws before. Reed points out the difference. They broke laws to survive, Wes out of greed. Hurt, Lauren walks away in tears, asking Reed to stop. John and Clarice track the mysterious road she portaled to while sick. Clarice remembers nothing and notes that Sentinel Services covers up mutant incidents. She doubts John can help without a lead, but John insists the trail could be inside her, like an animal instinctively returning to a safe place. He just needs to know where that place is. Agent Turner, Agent Weeks, and Dr. Campbell meet a DOJ official who warns their warrantless surveillance is illegal and demands a court order before deploying mutant assets. Turner argues they're targeting terrorists, but she insists suspects still have rights. Before she finishes, Dr. Campbell uses aid to induce her stroke, then pretends to help her. Turner suspects Campbell's involvement, but is told the DOJ will send others. Their work continues for now. Reed and Sage work on encrypted drives. Sage explains mutants with serious crimes aren't allowed at the station. Otherwise, honesty and trust are required. Those who break trust must leave. Lauren confronts Wes about the mutant fugitive file. He admits it's him, explaining he was desperate after being kicked out and got involved with a crew as their front man. Lauren is frustrated, feeling betrayed since he urged her to use her powers openly but lied about his past. She calls him just like one of your stupid mirages as she leaves. At the mansion, Marcos and the Guerra cartel prepare to hit a Russian shipment in Forest Hills. Carmen recalls Marcos's reckless past, but he insists he's changed, motivated by love for Polaris, Magnet Girl. They plan to send Lodo, a mutant, to neutralize the guards without killing. On a dirt road, John asks Clarice about her childhood home for mutant foster kids. She recognizes the farmhouse ahead, but John's foresight reveals Sentinel Services raided it. Inside, they find blood and bullet holes. Clarice breaks down as John comforts her. Dreamer and Polaris arrive at Carmen's mansion. Polaris quickly incapacitates the guards and demands Marcos and Carmen's location. When the guard stays silent, Dreamer uses her power to read his memories. Caitlin tells Reed that Lauren needs support, not judgment. Reed offers Wes a choice: keep his secret or confess and face consequences. John tells Clarice her foster parents died protecting others. Clarice blames herself, but John says Sentinel Services are responsible. Clarice accepts the fight against them is hers now. Eclipse and Carmen wait outside the Russians' lab. When the drug shipment arrives, Eclipse sets it all on fire while Lodo freezes the guards. Dreamer and Polaris watch silently and leave, realizing Eclipse isn't in trouble. Lorna confronts Marcos about his lies and the Santa Muerte medallion. Marcos admits he worked for Carmen to protect Lorna and their child, but kept it secret. Wes tells the Struckers he confessed his past and was forgiven, but he plans to leave with a group heading to Augusta Station, disappointing Lauren. John returns with Clarice and is kissed by Sonya, though he seems uneasy. Marcos receives a thank you text from Carmen, but remains unsettled. Reed and Caitlin grow closer. The next day, Lauren says goodbye as Wes leaves. In the monitoring cell, Sage tells John the second drive holds info on mutants sent into a program, including Pulse, but only courthouse records exist, no locations. Reed explains if Sentinel Services ran it, there should be records, but Sage reveals it's actually run by a private military contractor, Trask Industries, which closed in 2006. Reed knows the company since his father worked there, but he's unsure if his father was involved. Meanwhile, Agent Turner and Dr. Campbell start their undercover plan, sending mutant assets to target the underground. Turner doubts its success, but Campbell sees the mutants as weapons. They enter a secured room where a dozen hounds await orders. London, 1952, Andreas and Andrea von Strucker hide from the law. When the phone rings, only the organization calls. Andreas answers. Interpol soon surrounds them. Outmatched, they hold hands and unleash a powerful, destructive force. Reed tells Caitlin, Lauren, and Andy about his father's ties to Trask Industries, behind the Hound program. Andy recalls Reed saying his dad disappeared and abandoned them, but he actually lives 2 hours away. The kids never met him because he was distant and never visited Reed when he was sick. Lauren sympathizes, holding Reed's hand. They must reconnect to learn more about Trask and Sentinel. Marcos urges Lorna to come to bed, but she's upset about his secret deal with Carmen. Marcos says he did it to save Lorna, but she's unconvinced. She saw Marcos torch a truck and Carmen kiss him on the cheek. Marcos denies nothing. With war ongoing, Marcos wants no new conflicts, especially with a baby coming. Lorna doubts they can protect the baby or themselves. Marcos insists they will, together. Reed tells John they must visit his father in Chattanooga, their only link to Trask Industries. John heads to Perry to rescue survivors, telling Reed to prepare supplies for their departure. Marcos informs John that Clarice will join instead of Lorna. John suspects trouble, but Marcos insists Lorna isn't coming. Sonia approaches Clarice to ease tensions after implanting a memory without permission. Clarice remains angry, but says she returned to avenge her foster parents killed by Sentinel Services. She joins John and Marcos to rescue survivors. At Eternal Grace Church, Thunderbird, Eclipse, and Blink find a dozen refugees and some mutants. Blink befriends a young mutant girl. Esme warns Thunderbird about a sickly woman. Thunderbird reveals a hound brand on her wrist. The woman attacks fiercely, but Eclipse traps her with lasers, and Blink teleports Thunderbird for a knockout punch. John, Marcos, and Clarice return with refugees and a spy. The woman, armed and carrying a beacon, is locked up. Perry was hit by another hound. Sage wants to stop taking refugees, but John insists on helping. Reed must visit his father in Chattanooga for answers. Marcos and Lorna are to interrogate the woman despite their tension. Reed leaves after a heartfelt goodbye from Caitlin, who stays behind with the kids. Facing his father after 20 years shakes him. Clarice offers Nora, the blue-skinned girl, a chance to talk and gives her a blanket. Caitlin, Lauren, and Andy care for an injured mutant refugee, while Andy and Lauren tend a mutant. Caitlin treats Esme's arm wound. Esme, a psychic, senses Caitlin's worries about the mutant-human war and family division. Esme apologizes for reading her thoughts. Caitlin jokes about her college past and reassures her she's valued. The prisoner won't talk. Sonia tries using smoke, but the prisoner's speed and metabolism block it. Lorna threatens with a knife, but Marcos stops her. John and Reed arrive in Chattanooga. Reed's father, Otto, is an antique dealer, surprising John. Otto never expected to see Reed again. Lorna questions Marcos's refusal to torture. Marcos, a former cartel member, fears the toll of torture and its consequences. The prisoner shows drug withdrawal signs Marcos recognizes. Marcos and Lorna suspect the prisoner is going through withdrawal. Caitlin confirms she shows all the symptoms. Marcos explains Kick, a mutant drug that boosts powers but is addictive. Lorna worries treating her will make her stronger and more dangerous, while Marcos believes treatment could help get answers. Caitlin reminds them they're fighting for a world where everyone can live together. Clarice finds Nora with Zingo, who only likes certain people. Clarice and Nora are special mutants. Nora reveals they're from the same foster home, and that Sentinel Services attacked them. Nora feels haunted by the attack, which angers Clarice, who feels responsible. In Chattanooga, Otto tells Reed his visit is pointless. He calls the mutant underground criminals and mocks their cause. Otto refuses to discuss his classified work with Trask Industries. Reed reveals Trask's return with anti-mutant research and that his grandchildren are mutants, which Otto dismisses as coincidence. John adds that Trask experiments on mutants and turned Pulse. Otto then calls Reed upstairs. Otto asks about Ellen and the kids. Reed shares a family photo and urges Otto for info on Trask. Otto says his work was peaceful and denies involvement in mutant experiments. Distressed by Reed's children's powers, Otto says, "It came back." Dr. Campbell reports their asset is missing, likely compromised, and requests a replacement. Lauren and Andy restrain the prisoner so Caitlin can sedate her for treatment. The prisoner quickly falls unconscious. Marcos and Lorna secure her while Caitlin treats her withdrawal. The woman is dying from heavy drug use, raising concerns she won't talk, but Caitlin hopes a dying patient might still confess. Otto shows Reed photos of his mutant terrorist family. Fenris, the wolf, his father and aunt, who shared powers with Andy and Lauren. Otto hid his own powers and worked with Trask to create a serum to stop mutants, giving Reed a painful dose as a child. Otto now regrets it all. While Caitlin treats the prisoner, a large refugee objects, but Andy intimidates him to back off. Sage identifies the prisoner as Chloe Tan, arrested after attacking a doctor who refused to treat mutant children. Chloe can't speak, so Caitlin wants Esme to read her mind. Otto hid the truth to protect Reed from becoming like his dangerous relatives Andreas and Andrea. This secrecy broke his marriage. When Sentinel services arrive, Otto decides to face them alone, telling Reed to protect his siblings and the world. Dr. Campbell, impressed by Otto's past work, wants Reed, but Otto denies knowing him. Despite mutant powers being suppressed by Pulse, Otto unleashes a powerful energy blast after being shot, forcing the agents to retreat. Upstairs, Thunderbird and Reed debate whether to help downstairs. Reed wants to go, but Thunderbird convinces him to stay, as others depend on them. After Otto's energy blast, they find his body and discover Pulse outside, wounded. Pulse apologizes before dying, with John vowing revenge on Sentinel services. Back at HQ, Caitlin brings Esme to read Chloe's mind. Esme hesitates but fights on, driven by her family's captivity. She uncovers that Trask killed Chloe's husband and took her daughter. Chloe dies on the table soon after. Clarice apologizes to Sonia and explains her portals were attracting Sentinel services, leading to the death of her and Nora's foster parents. Sonia agrees to erase Nora's traumatic memories. That night, Thunderbird and Reed bury Pulse and Otto in shallow graves. Reed leaves a family photo on Otto's grave. As the day ends, Lorna forgives Marcos, and they reconcile. Reed returns to the station and shares Otto's death with Caitlin, Andy, and Lauren. They comfort each other, with Lauren and Andy holding hands. 1 year ago, the Strucker family had a picnic at a park, their first in a long time. Reed apologized for the rare outings, but Caitlin understood his busy work life. Lauren had been distant, but Caitlin attributed it to typical teenage moodiness. Andy convinced Lauren to let him teach her to skate. When Lauren fell, Andy caught her hand, and their hands glowed just like their ancestors, Andrea and Andreas von Strucker's powers, when combined. Shocked, they decided to keep it a secret when Reed asked if they were okay. Reed recalls sneaking into his father Otto's office as a kid, despite his mother's warnings, and the tense hospital visits where Otto refused to see him. Caitlin joins Reed as he struggles with his grief over his father after 20 years of estrangement. She shares her own story of strained family ties and how missing time makes loss worse. Reed reveals Otto's work had suppressed his powers during a painful childhood illness, mistaken for leukemia, which tore the family apart. Meanwhile, John, Clarice, Marcos, Lorna, Sonia, Sage, and Esme plan to infiltrate Trask Industries to rescue mutants, including Esme's family. From Chloe Tan's memories, they know the mutants inside are suffering terribly. Esme hears their screams and agony. Sage prepares a site map, but security details are unknown. Despite the risks, Esme and the group are determined to save the prisoners, but agree not to act until they understand the facility better. After the meeting, John and Sonia argue about Esme's plan to attack Trask. John feels guilty for leaving Pulse behind, but Sonia disagrees. Esme secretly listens. That night, Andy and Lauren learn their grandfather was a powerful mutant from a feared family called Fenris. Lauren is disturbed and ends the talk. Lorna dreams her friends and baby are trapped at Trask. She wakes using her powers, waking Marcos too. Lorna wants to act on the dream, unaware Esme caused it. Dr. Campbell, badly burned from his encounter with Otto, is in the hospital with his mutant asset Aid trying to heal him. Agents Weeks and Turner discuss how to respond, knowing the mutant underground might strike again but lack intel to justify a raid. The underground also knows about the Hound program, making the lab a likely target. At HQ, Sage scouts the remote Trask lab and finds a nearby bar popular with employees. Sonia volunteers to gather intel there. Marcos offers to help, but Lorna suggests 2 women have better chances. Reed comforts Caitlin, who struggles with recent events and what might have been if Lauren or Otto had been honest. Reed reveals that Otto's ancestors, Andreas and Andrea, were powerful mutant terrorists who combined powers destructively, just like Andy and Lauren might. They decide to test if Andy and Lauren can do the same. Dreamer and Polaris, disguised, visit a late-night bar and target a Trask guard. They get him drunk, but when he mocks mutants, Polaris knocks him out with a metal-crafted brass knuckle. Dreamer uses pink smoke to read his mind, discovering the lab's heavy defenses, including high fences, rooftop guns, and the guard's password. She erases his memory of the incident. Reed shares the intel with Lauren and Andy and decides to test if they have inherited the powerful Fenris force. When they join hands, they glow intensely and feel overwhelming energy, frightening Reed and Caitlin. After reviewing the guard's memory, Marcos and the group learn the lab is heavily fortified with sensors and mounted guns. Lorna can't neutralize all the defenses from a distance, and Clarice's teleportation is too risky. Sage finds a weak point, a power substation miles away that, if taken out, would disable the lab's systems temporarily. However, they don't have enough fighters to attack both targets simultaneously and are reaching out to other stations for support. Andy and Lauren feel their combined powers make them one, able to control everything around them. Andy wants to practice, but Lauren and their parents warn it's too risky. Andy storms off. Lauren follows, saying their parents just want to protect him. She admits their power feels good, which scares her. They recall their first experience a year ago and wonder if they'll become like the Von Struckers. Lorna and Marcos discuss the substation Sage found. They have only 3 minutes to shut it down before power returns. Lorna worries about the baby's safety. Marcos promises protection, but she doubts it. Esme suggests using Andy and Lauren to disable the substation. Jace tells Paula he's working late for justice. Agent Weeks reports a risky team is ready to investigate the lab. Failure means serious consequences. Marcos and team ask Reed and Caitlin to let Andy and Lauren shut down the substation while others hit the lab. It's the only plan that works. Reed and Caitlin agree with monitoring. They prepare to move out. Near Trask, Polaris warns Esme the mission will get violent. Esme admits she's scared, but won't leave her family behind. Eclipse and Thunderbird approach the heavily guarded Trask fence. Thunderbird wishes Pulse were there to disable the automated guns, but blames himself for leaving him behind. Eclipse reminds him he wasn't alone in that. They call Reed to confirm they're in position. Blink drives Dreamer and the Struckers to the power station. Reed tells Thunderbird they're en route. Caitlin warns Andy and Lauren this mission is every parent's worst nightmare, but they trust them. Sage loops security footage to hide the team's presence. Blink portals Dreamer Andy, Lauren, and herself inside. At the conference room, Agent Turner learns lab employees seem normal except one sick guard, the same Dreamer and Polaris met. Turner suspects something's off, finds the guard's file with power station access info, and orders a tactical team to the substation. Guided by Reed and Caitlin, Dreamer, Blink, Lauren, and Andy navigate the power station using a hazy memory. Blink explains why she can't portal directly near the transformers. After spotting a guard, Sonya disables him with smoke, letting the team pass. Thunderbird warns Eclipse, Polaris, and Esme that after the Struckers cut power, they have only 3 minutes to plant charges and enter Trask. They don't know the layout, so Esme will lead. Their plan, free prisoners, then destroy Trask's mainframe. Esme is confident the prisoners will help. Reed calms Caitlin, recalling how focusing on the plan helped him during busts. Their priority is protecting the kids. Agent Turner suspects mutants will target the power station first to disable security before attacking the lab. Despite Agent Weeks' doubts, mutants are detected, and the tactical team moves in. Turner reassures Weeks the Sentinels have been improved. As Dreamer, Blink, Lauren, and Andy move through the building, Reed and Caitlin warn them of an approaching Sentinel and armed team. The alarm sounds and Dreamer orders a retreat, but Blink can't portal them out due to unfamiliarity with the building. Andy tries to destroy the Sentinel, but fails. They run, but Blink is caught as the Sentinel pins her down. Reed urges Caitlin to stay back to avoid capture. At Trask Labs, alarms go off, and Thunderbird hears guards confirm the power station is under attack. He calls off the mission, but Esme insists on continuing. Thunderbird reluctantly carries her away. Meanwhile, Dreamer, Lauren, and Andy reach the basement as the building locks down. Dreamer uses Sage's code to open the door, lets Andy and Lauren escape, then seals the door behind her, sacrificing herself to hold off the Sentinels. The siblings enter a vacant lot, panicked and trapped. Lauren urges Andy to combine their powers to escape by destroying the building. Andy agrees, but then realizes they're in the basement. Using their power would collapse the entire building, killing everyone inside. With no other choice, they surrender as Agent Turner, Weeks, and their team arrive, weapons drawn. The siblings kneel as ability-suppressing collars are placed on them, while Caitlin and Reed watch helplessly from the van. 2 months ago, Senator Montez holds an anti-mutant rally, blaming mutants for rising crime and promising tougher laws. Esme, undercover as his assistant, warns her family telepathically and escapes after mutants are caught at the rally. Now, the mutant underground struggles after Dreamer, Blink, Andy, and Lauren are captured. Lorna wants a rescue, but Caitlin and Reed say it's too risky. John breaks up their argument, stressing unity. Marcos suggests scouting the enemy, and John sends Sage and Shatter to gather intel. At Sentinel Services HQ, Andy and Lauren are locked in adjacent cells, restrained by power-suppressing collars. Andy's powers flare, causing painful shocks. They fear terrorism charges. Andy regrets not combining powers to escape, but Lauren assures him it was the right choice to avoid harming innocents. Agent Turner interrogates Sonia, who claims they got lost searching for an aquarium. He recalls her previous mental intrusion that took memories of his deceased daughter, Grace, causing him deep pain. Moved, yet furious, he tells Sonia she'll be forced into the Hound program as punishment. Agent Turner watches as Agent Weeks interrogates Clarice, who claims she got lost looking for the restroom. Weeks warns her she won't escape again, but Clarice insists she's no fool. She refuses to make a deal. Turner calls Dr. Campbell to report the arrests. Campbell has recovered from injuries with mutant help, but bears scars. At HQ, Reed and Caitlin consider a political approach to free Andy and Lauren. Esme overhears and advises them not to attack Sentinel Services, since family members are inside. She urges them to try convincing Agent Turner to remove the mutants from Trask Labs, warning that jail or the Hound program are worse fates. Marcos comforts Lorna, who is distraught over Sonia's capture and skeptical of legal routes. Marcos reminds her their child's safety depends on their actions. Sonia and Clarice are in connected cells at Trask Labs, worrying about Lauren and Andy. Sonia recalls volunteering at a shelter, using her powers to ease victims' pain, and wishes she could erase their current trauma. Clarice encourages hope, reminding Sonia that escape is possible and John will come for them. Reed and Caitlin weigh the risks of Esme's plan. Jail offers a chance. The lab means becoming hounds. They decide to act quickly and secretly. Reed plans to find Agent Turner's home address from courthouse files, while Caitlin gathers supplies. Esme watches from near the vault. Andy and Lauren meet Dr. Campbell, who monitors their biometrics in skin-tight suits. He believes they inherited a rare power to combine abilities from their ancestors, Andreas and Andrea von Strucker. Lauren denies knowing about this, but Campbell doubts her. He orders tests to confirm if they share this trait. Andy and Lauren are locked in an adamantium-lined cell. Dr. Campbell orders them to combine their powers for testing. Their collars are off, but they refuse. He shocks Lauren, but they still won't cooperate. Reed and Caitlin arrive at Turner's neighborhood, similar to their own. They discuss how many might accept mutants being experimented on. Caitlin pulls a gun, ready if things go wrong. Reed hopes Turner can be convinced to do the right thing. Marcos and Lorna review Trask's tightened security. Shatter's scouting turns grim. Esme, having read the Struckers' minds, suspects they've approached Turner. She smiles as her plan unfolds. At home, Jace drinks. Paula senses he's troubled, but he won't share details. She urges him to take time off, fearing he'll end up like his late father. He jokes about her being a hot widow. Suddenly, Caitlin and Reed burst in, guns drawn. At the station, Marcos, Lorna, and Esme report the Struckers left to convince Turner to free everyone from Trask Lab. Esme remarks prison isn't better and the Struckers don't understand because they're human. Esme is playing both sides. Even if they succeed, Turner moves prisoners to detention forever. If Turner moves prisoners tonight, John and Lorna can rescue everyone. Marcos argues it's risky since Sentinel Services hit back hard last time. Esme says Reed being a lawyer may help. They need a plan. Shatter is scouting Trask and needs warning about Sentinel Services. Jace tells Reed and Caitlin kidnapping him, and Paula hurts their cause since Sentinel Services doesn't negotiate with terrorists. Reed says it isn't kidnapping and they aren't terrorists. They're leaving afterward. Caitlin explains they're discussing their tortured kids and other mutants. Paula listens. Reed and Caitlin chose Turner because he's a father who's seen his child caught in an unwanted war. They want the Hound program shut down. Turner won't free criminals. Reed asks him to uphold the Constitution. Turner says Trask operations are Congress-authorized. Lorna is ready to rescue their friends, but Marcos worries about armed Sentinel agents and Trask security causing a bloodbath. Lorna won't beg for mercy like the Struckers or rely on human decency. Marcos understands, but notes he came for her while the Struckers only want their kids out to imprison them forever. Marcos has seen killing and knows where this leads from his cartel days. He's lost countless friends. Lorna refuses to live in fear. In the adamantium cell, Lauren and Andy resist combining their powers despite the painful shocks. Dr. Campbell returns with Sonia and Clarice as leverage, holding them at gunpoint. Sonia urges Lauren and Andy not to comply. Growing impatient, Campbell shoots Sonia dead, her body falling lifeless as pink smoke escapes her mouth. He then threatens Clarice, forcing Andy and Lauren to choose between compliance or losing her too. With no choice left, they join hands and combine their powers. Their glowing energy blasts the sensors, damaging the supposedly indestructible adamantium cell and destroying a neighboring lab wall, proving Campbell wrong. At Turner's house, Reed and Caitlin plead for Andy, Lauren, and the others' release. Turner insists their capture was legal. They're terrorists for attacking infrastructure, and reminds them his daughter is dead while theirs are alive. Caitlin shares how the Hound program drugs and controls mutants, forcing them to kill their loved ones, which is worse than death. After they leave, Jace prepares to hunt them down, but Paula questions if what Caitlin said is true and what Jace is doing in Grace's name. That night, Clarice, Andy, and Lauren despair over Sonya's death, blaming themselves for her loss. Campbell's tests show the mutant's bonding agent matches their siblings, giving Trask a permanent weapon against mutants. Sentinel Services arrives to retrieve the prisoners. Agent Turner, now doubting the legality of their detention, orders the mutants taken back, but finds Sonya is missing. Campbell explains she died during an experiment. Turner is upset but proceeds with the roundup. John learns Sentinel Services is transporting the mutants from Trask. The Underground plans a quick ambush on the interstate. Esme scouts the security but betrays them, tasing Eclipse and using mind control to incite a deadly massacre among the agents. Turner is knocked out. Esme reunites with her sisters, Phoebe and Sophie, who join her in attacking the agents. Clarice frees the mutants' collars during the chaos. Eclipse warns the others about Esme's betrayal. The mutants, led by Andy, Lauren, and Clarice, escape the transport as Esme and her sisters declare, "The fun's just starting."